The morning sun reflected off the gleaming cars parked outside Lakeview Luxury Motors, a high-end dealership in the heart of Chicago. The showroom, filled with sleek, meticulously polished vehicles, buzzed with an air of quiet exclusivity. Customers in tailored suits and designer dresses moved between the displays, speaking in hushed tones with sharply dressed salespeople who knew exactly how to cater to the city's elite. A black SUV pulled into the lot, blending in with the rows of expensive vehicles. The door opened, and Emily Carter stepped out, adjusting the hood of her navy blue sweatshirt and pulling her baseball cap lower over her face. She moved with quiet confidence, her hands tucked into the pockets of her jeans, her eyes scanning the showroom with genuine curiosity. But to an outsider, she was just another casually dressed woman, someone who, at first glance, didn't belong. Inside, the scent of new leather and fresh polish filled the air. Emily strolled through the showroom, her gaze landing on a sleek convertible, its pristine white leather seats gleaming under the lights. She paused, admiring the car's clean lines and elegant design. She wasn't just browsing, she was serious. But no one approached her. Near the service desk, Rachel Matthews, a top-performing saleswoman known for her sharp eye for real customers, scanned the showroom. She spotted Emily, her hoodie and cap standing out among the designer-clad clientele. With a quick, practiced judgment, Rachel dismissed her as unimportant, turning instead to a well-dressed couple who had just walked in. Emily, unfazed, continued looking at the convertible, unaware that she had just been overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed, a mistake that would soon come back to haunt the dealership. Emily Carter wasn't in a hurry. She took her time circling the sleek convertible, running her fingers along the polished exterior, appreciating every detail, the fine stitching of the white leather seats, the modern yet timeless dashboard, the way the car seemed to radiate power and sophistication. It wasn't just a luxury car to her, it was an experience, a statement, something she had worked hard to afford. Still, no one approached her. Salespeople moved effortlessly between well-dressed clients, offering them warm smiles and engaging conversation. Emily watched as one salesman eagerly showed a businessman the interior of a high-performance sports car, detailing every feature with enthusiasm. Another salesperson handed a woman a fresh espresso while discussing customization options. But Emily? She was invisible. She finally decided to seek assistance and made her way to the service desk, where Rachel Matthews, the same saleswoman who had dismissed her earlier, had just finished speaking with a wealthy-looking couple. As Emily approached, Rachel turned with a polite but detached smile, one of those well-practiced expressions that masked disinterest. "Hi, can I help you?" Rachel asked, adjusting the name tag on her crisp blazer. Emily gestured toward the convertible. "I really like that model. Is it available?" Rachel barely glanced at the car before returning her gaze to Emily, and for a split second, something flickered in her expression, judgment. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Emily noticed. "Oh," Rachel said, her voice carrying a carefully measured politeness, "that's one of our most exclusive models. It comes with a premium package and a fairly high price point." Emily kept her expression neutral. "That's fine. I'd still like to learn more about it." Rachel hesitated, her fingers fidgeting slightly on the counter. She clearly hadn't expected that response. Still, she recovered quickly. "Of course," she said, though there was a noticeable shift in her tone, like she was humoring Emily rather than truly assisting her. As Rachel reluctantly led her back to the car, she recited the specifications in a rehearsed, almost mechanical tone. The passion she had displayed with other customers was missing. She wasn't selling the car, she was simply listing features, as if assuming this conversation was a waste of time. Emily, unfazed, asked detailed questions about engine performance, interior materials, and available customizations. With each inquiry, Rachel's demeanor changed ever so slightly. Her initial assumptions about Emily began to waver. "You seem to know a lot about cars," Rachel finally admitted, trying to hide her surprise. Emily shrugged. "I like to know what I'm buying. Then came the real test. "Sounds great," Emily said, running her fingers over the smooth leather steering wheel. "Is this model available for a test drive?" Rachel let out a short, almost amused laugh. "A test drive?" "Yes," Emily said evenly. "I'd like to see how it handles on the road before making a decision." Rachel hesitated again. "Well, normally, we only allow test drives for clients with serious purchasing intentions." Emily raised an eyebrow. "And I don't seem serious?" Rachel backtracked instantly. "Oh, that's not what I meant. It's just that this model is in high demand, so we're a bit more selective with test drives." Emily remained silent for a moment, studying Rachel carefully. She saw the discomfort in her eyes, the way she tried to mask her initial judgment. The message was clear: you don't look like the kind of person who buys cars like this. Finally, Emily offered a small smile. "That's fine," she said. "Just put me on the list of interested buyers." Rachel looked relieved, but before she could respond, another voice interrupted. "Excuse me, do you have this model available for a test drive?" Emily turned toward the voice and saw a well-dressed man with neatly styled hair, an expensive watch glinting under the showroom lights. Rachel's demeanor shifted instantly. Her polite indifference vanished, replaced by genuine enthusiasm. She smiled brightly, her tone warm and welcoming. "Of course, sir. I can arrange that for you right away." Emily watched the scene unfold without a word. She didn't need to say anything. The difference in treatment was undeniable. Rachel hadn't asked the man for proof of purchasing intentions. She hadn't hesitated. She had simply assumed that he belonged. Emily slid her hands into the pockets of her hoodie, tilting her head slightly. "I guess that makes things pretty clear, doesn't it?" she murmured under her breath. And in that moment, she knew, this wasn't over. Emily stood there, hands still tucked into her hoodie pockets, watching as the well-dressed man was effortlessly granted a test drive. No hesitations. No questions. No doubt. It was all so seamless, so natural, because, to Rachel, he fit the profile. She had seen enough. With a quiet chuckle, Emily turned away from the convertible, making her way toward the exit. She wasn't upset, no, she had expected this. She had been in places like this before, seen people like Rachel before. The ones who judged worth by the brand of someone's shoes rather than the depth of their character. But as Emily reached the door, something happened. The automatic doors slid open once more, and in walked Keanu Reeves. A shift swept through the dealership, like a ripple of energy moving through the room. It was subtle at first, just a few heads turning, then a few more. Conversations slowed. Employees straightened their postures. Even Rachel, mid-sentence with her preferred customer, glanced toward the entrance. Clad in a black leather jacket, dark sunglasses, and well-worn boots, Keanu moved with his signature effortless calm. He didn't have to announce himself, his presence alone commanded attention. And then, with a small, knowing smile, he locked eyes with Emily. "Hope I didn't keep you waiting too long, Carter." It was as if time had stopped. The name Carter echoed in Rachel's mind like an explosion. Her breath caught. Her mind raced. The casually dressed woman she had just dismissed, this nobody in a hoodie, was on a first-name basis with Keanu Reeves. The realization hit her like a freight train. A murmur rippled through the room as customers and employees alike pieced it together. Rachel, now standing frozen beside the wealthy-looking customer she had prioritized, felt her stomach drop. She had just made a career-ending mistake. Emily, meanwhile, simply smirked, tilting her head slightly as she watched the color drain from Rachel's face. Keanu walked up casually, glancing at the convertible before looking back at Emily. "Did you pick out your car yet?" Rachel's knees nearly buckled. She opened her mouth, desperate to recover, but no words came out. Her pulse pounded in her ears. The woman she had dismissed, the one she had treated as unworthy, was standing next to one of the most respected actors in Hollywood like they were old friends. Keanu, oblivious to the internal crisis unfolding in Rachel's mind, finally noticed the tension. He glanced around the room, frowning slightly. "What's up? Why does everyone look so tense?" Emily turned to Rachel at last, amusement flickering in her gaze. "I think someone just realized they made the worst mistake of their life." Rachel's face burned with humiliation. Keanu followed Emily's gaze and finally noticed Rachel, standing there trembling with nerves. "Do you work here?" Keanu asked, his tone still light, but now laced with curiosity. Rachel swallowed hard. "Why yes, Mr. Reeves, welcome. It's such an honor to have you here." The sudden shift in her voice was so extreme that even the other employees cringed on her behalf. Emily folded her arms across her chest, the smirk never leaving her face. "Funny. Now I seem to have the right profile to be served, huh?" Rachel's breath hitched. She was trapped. By now, everyone in the showroom knew exactly what had happened. The employees subtly stepped back, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. The wealthy customers Rachel had been so eager to serve now looked at her with judgment in their eyes. Keanu's frown deepened. "Wait, you refuse to serve Emily?" Rachel felt her entire body tremble. It was a misunderstanding," she stammered. Emily let out a dry chuckle. "A misunderstanding?" She took a step forward, keeping her gaze locked on Rachel's. "Then explain why I couldn't even touch this car a few minutes ago, and now, suddenly, I'm welcome here." Rachel opened her mouth, scrambling for an excuse, but there was none. Keanu sighed, shaking his head in disappointment. "This still happens?" Emily gave Rachel one last glance, her eyes filled with something unreadable. Pity, perhaps. Disdain. Or maybe just the quiet satisfaction of knowing justice had already been served. Then, with a small, almost playful smile, she turned back to Keanu. "So, should we go?" Keanu chuckled, shaking his head. "Absolutely." Rachel stood frozen in place as they turned toward the exit. But just before stepping outside, Emily paused. She turned back one last time, meeting Rachel's humiliated gaze. "Oh, and thanks for the suggestion about that cheaper dealership downtown. But I think I'll just buy straight from the manufacturer instead." And with that, she walked out, leaving the dealership, and Rachel, completely shattered in her wake. Rachel stood frozen, her body stiff with humiliation as the automatic doors slid shut behind Emily Carter and Keanu Reeves. The weight of what had just happened settled over her like a suffocating fog. The dealership floor, once bustling with confidence and prestige, now felt hostile, a silent battlefield where she had lost spectacularly. Customers whispered among themselves, stealing glances in her direction. Employees exchanged uneasy looks, as if trying to distance themselves from the disaster she had just caused. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. She wasn't just embarrassed, she had made a critical mistake that the entire showroom had witnessed. And then, just as she thought it couldn't get worse, her manager's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Rachel. My office. Now." Her stomach twisted into knots. She swallowed hard and turned, her once confident stride now stiff and uncertain as she followed her boss toward the back of the dealership. The moment the office door shut behind her, the air became thick with tension. Her manager, Mr. Lawson, didn't waste any time. He slammed his palm against the desk, making Rachel flinch. "Do you have any idea how badly you just screwed up?" Rachel kept her gaze on the floor, her pulse hammering in her ears. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," Lawson barked. She lifted her eyes, filled with panic. "We just lost two of the most influential customers in the world," he continued, his voice dripping with frustration. "All because you decided to judge someone by their appearance." He let out a heavy sigh and rubbed his temples. "Do you know what that means for us? Rachel remained silent, but Lawson wasn't finished. He grabbed a tablet from his desk and slid it toward her. On the screen were multiple headlines, already spreading like wildfire. Keanu Reeves and business partner humiliated at luxury dealership. Saleswoman denies Emily Carter a test drive, pays the price. Keanu Reeves calls out elitist sales tactics in Chicago. Each headline felt like a gut punch. Lawson leaned forward. Our reputation is tanking. Our online ratings have plummeted overnight. And guess who's going to take the fall for this? Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Please, sir, let me fix this," she stammered. Lawson let out a cold laugh. "Fix it? And how do you suppose you do that? You think you can just apologize and it'll all go away?" Rachel didn't have an answer. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Finally, Lawson exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "I should fire you right now." She felt her blood run cold. But instead of delivering the final blow, he leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting slightly. "Maybe, there's still a chance." Rachel blinked in surprise. "I want you to prove that you've learned something from this," Lawson said, his voice firm but controlled. "Not to save your job, but because you need to understand what you did wrong." She felt a small flicker of hope. "Go find Emily Carter," he ordered. "And apologize. And I don't mean a PR-friendly, insincere apology, I mean a real one. One that actually means something." Rachel's heart pounded. "And if I do?" she asked hesitantly. Lawson's expression hardened. "Then maybe, I'll consider not firing you." She barely had time to process his words before he pointed to the door. "Go. Before I change my mind." Rachel nodded quickly, her hands shaking as she grabbed her coat and rushed out of the office. But as she stepped into the cold Chicago evening, a new problem loomed over her. How the hell was she supposed to apologize to Emily Carter? Rachel Matthews sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The cold Chicago evening pressed against the windows, but the real chill settled deep in her chest. She had been given one last chance, one opportunity to redeem herself, but the thought of facing Emily Carter again made her stomach twist. How do you apologize for something like this? It wasn't just about a misunderstanding. It wasn't just about misjudging a customer. She had humiliated someone. And not just anyone, someone who clearly had influence, someone connected to one of the most respected actors in Hollywood. But beyond that, Rachel had made an assumption, one based purely on appearance, and now, she had to own up to it. She took a deep breath and pulled out her phone. After a few quick searches, she found what she was looking for, a high-end cafe just a few blocks away, a place where Keanu Reeves and Emily Carter had reportedly been spotted after leaving the dealership. This was her shot. A nervous encounter. When Rachel walked into the cafe, her heart pounded in her chest. The warm scent of coffee and freshly baked pastries filled the air, but it did nothing to calm her nerves. She scanned the room, and then, there she was. Emily Carter sat near the window, a steaming cup of coffee in front of her, casually flipping through her phone. She looked relaxed, completely unbothered by the chaos she had unknowingly caused at the dealership. Rachel, on the other hand, felt like she was walking into a courtroom. She swallowed hard and forced herself to move forward. Emily glanced up as Rachel approached, her expression unreadable. She didn't look angry. She didn't look smug. She just looked at her, waiting. Rachel cleared her throat. "Miss Carter." She hesitated, then exhaled sharply. "I just wanted to apologize." Emily set her phone down, leaning back slightly. "Apologize?" she echoed, tilting her head. Rachel nodded quickly, her palms sweating. "I know I was arrogant. Judgmental. Unfair. And I have no excuse for it. All I can say is that I messed up. Badly. A beat of silence passed. Emily studied her for a moment, then crossed her arms. You want me to accept your apology? Rachel's throat went dry. Not for my job, she admitted, shaking her head. I know that's already lost. I want you to know that I genuinely regret what I did. For the first time, a flicker of something, maybe amusement, maybe curiosity, crossed Emily's face. You know, I've dealt with a lot of people like you, Emily said, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. People who assume they know someone just by looking at them. Rachel lowered her gaze, ashamed. Emily took a slow sip, then set the cup down. But not many of them have the courage to admit they were wrong. Rachel looked up, surprised. Emily let out a small sigh and studied her carefully. So, you're sorry. Great. But the real question is, what are you going to do with that? Rachel frowned slightly. What do you mean? Emily smirked. Being sorry is easy. Changing is hard. The words hit Rachel harder than she expected. An apology was just words, but real growth? That was something else entirely. Rachel hesitated for a moment, then straightened her shoulders. I'm going to prove that I've learned. Emily nodded slowly, as if considering. Then, finally, she gave a small smile. Then I accept your apology. Rachel felt a wave of relief crash over her. Thank you, she said, and for the first time in a long while, she meant it. Emily stood up, grabbing her coffee. As she turned to leave, she gave Rachel one last look and a knowing wink. Good luck with that. And just like that, she was gone, leaving Rachel sitting there, staring into her untouched cup of coffee, realizing that her second chance wasn't just about keeping her job. It was about becoming someone better. A second chance earned. A week had passed since that disastrous day at Lakeview Luxury Motors, but for Rachel Matthews, it felt like a lifetime. The dealership had taken a massive hit, bad press, online backlash, and a wave of negative reviews flooded in, calling out the discrimination that had played out in front of customers. Rachel had barely managed to keep her job. Her manager, Mr. Lawson, had made it clear, you either prove you've changed, or you're out. No second chances. Rachel had spent the past few days reflecting, not just on her mistakes, but on the why behind them. Why had she been so quick to judge Emily Carter? Why had she assumed that someone's worth could be measured by their clothing, their accessories, their outward appearance? It was a bitter pill to swallow, but Rachel realized something. She had been so focused on status, on sales quotas, on making assumptions that she had forgotten the one thing that mattered most, respect. And now, she had one shot to prove she had truly learned. A test of character. That morning, a potential customer walked into the dealership, a middle-aged man, wearing faded jeans and an old windbreaker. His shoes were scuffed, his hair slightly unkempt. A younger Rachel might have dismissed him immediately. But not today. Rachel approached with a genuine smile, treating him with the same level of attentiveness she would have given to any high-profile client. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Lakeview Luxury Motors. How can I help you today? The man looked slightly surprised, as if expecting to be ignored. Just browsing, he said. Take your time, Rachel responded warmly. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help. As he moved through the showroom, she didn't hover, didn't pressure, but she also didn't dismiss him. Instead, she observed. The way he inspected the details of each car carefully, the way he checked the interior craftsmanship with a practiced eye, this wasn't someone who was just here to window shop. When he finally stopped in front of a luxury sedan, Rachel approached again. Beautiful choice, she said. Would you like to hear about the features? The man hesitated, then nodded. This time, Rachel didn't just rattle off specs like a rehearsed script, she engaged. She asked questions about what he was looking for in a car, what features mattered most to him. She listened. And then, when she offered him a test drive without hesitation, something changed in his expression. "You're the first person in a long time who hasn't treated me like I don't belong here," he admitted. Rachel felt a lump form in her throat. A week ago, she might have been just like those other salespeople. But today, she had chosen differently. By the time the deal was finalized, her manager had been watching from a distance. When the customer left, Mr. Lawson crossed his arms and smirked. "Not bad," he admitted. Rachel let out a breathless chuckle. "Thanks." He nodded approvingly. "Looks like you actually learned something." She grinned. "Yeah. I think I did. A lesson for today's world." As Rachel drove home that night, she checked her phone and noticed a new online review for the dealership. Clicking on it, her breath caught. The username, Emily Carter. The comment was simple but powerful. "Sometimes the best lessons come from the worst mistakes. I hope they stick." Rachel smiled to herself. Emily had given her a second chance, and this time, she wasn't going to waste it. The real-life takeaway: why this story matters. In today's world, where first impressions are often based on appearances, social media presence, or financial status, this story serves as a wake-up call. We judge too quickly. Prohibited we assume too much based on how someone looks, speaks, or presents themselves. White heavy checkmark we forget that true worth isn't found in designer labels, expensive watches, or flashy cars, it's in character, integrity, and respect. How we can apply this lesson today. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Don't assume someone's worth based on their clothes, car, or job title. Take the time to get to know them before making judgments. Treat everyone with respect, always. Whether it's a CEO or a cashier, kindness and fairness should be non-negotiable. The way you treat people when you think they can't offer you anything says everything about who you are. Own your mistakes and commit to real change. If you mess up, apologize sincerely, but don't stop there. Prove through your actions that you've learned. Rachel's story is a reminder that second chances exist, but they have to be earned. And in a world where status and image often take priority, choosing to see people for who they truly are, not just how they appear, might be the most important lesson of all.